They say hope can't grow on concrete, but they never said anything about dirt. 3 months after the eviction, after the shelters turned us away because Mia was too old for family units at 15, after sleeping in the car until Repo took that too, we found ourselves at the edge of a field nobody wanted. 6 acres of clay and thistles outlined by a sagging wire fence, accessible only by a rutted service road that dead-ended at a collapsed fruit stand. The realtor's sign hung sideways. Azus. Lions attached. Cash only. Inquire County. I had $62 in my pocket and a daughter who hadn't spoken more than a dozen words in 2 weeks. The field smelled like rust and old rain. A single oak stood in the middle, its bark scarred with initials I couldn't read from the road. Behind us, the highway whispered its constant leaving. Mia pulled her jacket tighter. "Is this where we're stopping?" "For now," I said, which was the only honest answer I had left. The county clerk looked at me like I'd asked to buy the moon. The liens totaled $4,800 in back taxes plus fees. But there was a program. Something about adverse possession claims, agricultural rehabilitation, proof of residency, and improvement over 18 months. Forms stacked 3 inches high. A waiting list. A hearing. "You'd have to live there," she said slowly, "and make documented improvements. No structures currently zoned for habitation." "What about a tent?" She hesitated. I didn't hear that. By the end of the week, we had a 10 by 12 canvas shelter staked under the oak, a used camping stove bought with money from selling plasma, and a 5-gallon bucket we'd converted into a makeshift toilet. Mia set up her sleeping bag as far from mine as the tent allowed and turned her back to me. At night, the field made sounds I'd never heard before. Wind through dry grass sounded like shuffling feet. The oak's branches groaned conversations I couldn't translate. Once, around 2 a.m., I heard what might have been coyotes, or might have been the echo of my own breathing. But in the morning, I walked the perimeter and felt something shift. This field had been something once. The collapsed fruit stand had foundation stones. The wire fence followed property lines someone had cared enough to mark. In the northwest corner, half buried under blackberry brambles, I found the remains of an irrigation channel. Someone had farmed here. Someone had built here. Someone had left. Chapter 1. The First Furrow. The soil fought me from the start. I'd found a rusted spade behind the fruit stand ruins, blade pitted, handle wrapped in electrical tape, and tried to turn the first row near the oak. The clay seized the blade like a fist. After 20 minutes, I'd managed a trench maybe 6 feet long and half a shovel deep. Sweat ran cold down my spine. My hands opened blisters that wept clear fluid. Mia watched from the tent flap, her expression unreadable. "You're doing it wrong," she finally said. "You want to show me the right way?" She disappeared back inside. I kept digging. By noon, I'd turned maybe 30 feet, a pathetic scratch across acres of resistance. But when I sat under the oak to rest, something caught my eye. There, carved into the trunk at ground level where the bark had grown over and split, were initials. EV 1987. Below that, barely visible, First Harvest, First Hope. Someone else had started from nothing here. 38 years ago, someone named EV had planted something in this same unforgiving ground. I spent the afternoon at the county library, using their internet to research survival farming, clay soil amendment, and heirloom seeds. A librarian, Mrs. Chen, her badge said, noticed me copying notes by hand. No phone? Not anymore. She printed everything for free. When I tried to thank her, she waved me off. My grandfather farmed. He used to say, "Dirt has memory. You just have to ask the right questions." That night, I showed Mia the printouts. She studied a diagram of companion planting. Beans, corn, squash, in complementary rows. Her finger tracing the arrows. This actually works. People have done it for thousands of years. People who knew what they were doing. Then we'll learn. She didn't answer, but she didn't leave either. The next morning, I found her outside before dawn, standing by my pathetic trench. She'd brought the spade. "If we're doing this," she said quietly, "we need to do it right. Clay like this needs organic matter, compost, leaves, grass clippings. The library said you can get free wood chips from Tree Services. I stared at her. You went back to the library? I couldn't sleep. We worked side by side that day and the day after. I called Tree Services until one agreed to dump a load of chips at the service road if we met them there. We hauled it in 5-gallon buckets, trip after trip. Spreading it in rows we mapped out with string and sticks. My back screamed. Mia's hands matched mine. Raw, dirty, determined. At the collapsed fruit stand we found more than stones. Underneath a section of rotted plywood there was a metal strongbox, rusted shut. I pried it open with the spade edge. Inside, seed packets, dozens of them, protected in Ziploc bags, labeled in careful handwriting. Tomatoes, beans, squash, corn, lettuce, herbs. Some were dated, 1986, 1987, too old to be viable probably. But tucked in the center was a manila envelope, sealed with ancient tape. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a hand-drawn map of the field divided into sections, each labeled with crop names and notes. Needs full sun, rotate yearly, plant with marigolds, pest control, water morning only. At the bottom, in that same careful script, to whoever finds this, I ran out of time. Don't make my mistake. Start small. Build season by season. The land remembers patience. It was signed E. Vega, March 1987. Mia read over my shoulder. When she reached the signature, her breath caught. Dad, look at the date. March 1987, 1 month before the carved message on the oak. E.V. had planted that first crop, marked that first harvest, and then... what? Left? Died? Given up? I turned the map over. On the back, in different ink, newer. Whoever you are, I'm sorry I couldn't finish what I started. The cancer came fast, my daughter couldn't keep it going alone. If you're reading this, the field found the right person. Make it live again. Elena V. April 2003. 16 years between notes. A lifetime of hope, packed into one box. Mia's eyes were wet. We have to try. We are trying. No, we have to make it work. For her. That week we used Elena's map to plan our first real garden, a 1/4 acre, the section she'd marked, gentle start, forgiving soil, good drainage. We buried the wood chips 6 inches deep, mixed in every leaf and grass clipping we could scrounge from the roadside. The clay began to yield piece by piece. A man stopped by on the 3rd day, weathered face, muddy boots, truck bed full of tools. He'd been driving past for a week watching us work. You the ones trying to bring this place back? I straightened, wary. We're camping here legally, filed with the county. He nodded. Elena Vega was my aunt. I should have taken care of this after she died, but life got complicated. You find anything out here? I showed him the map, the note. He read it twice, then folded it carefully and handed it back. She always said this land was healing land. Said if you worked it honest, it worked you back. He wiped his eyes roughly. Name's Paul. I've got compost aging that needs a home and some seedlings I started too many of. You could use them? We don't have money to pay you. Did I ask for money? By sunset, we had 2 cubic yards of rich compost, 3 flats of tomato starts, and bean seeds Paul swore were descendants of Elena's original stock. She saved seeds every year, passed them to family. These have 40 years of adaptation to this exact dirt. He showed us how to plant them, proper depth and spacing. Before he left, he looked around the field, at our tent under the oak, at the furrows we'd started. You got a long road ahead, but you're not alone in this, Elena. She was good to a lot of people around here. We remember. After he drove away, Mia planted the first bean seed. She pressed it into the amended soil with her thumb, covered it gently, and sat back on her heels. If you're enjoying this journey so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The words came out of nowhere, maybe something she'd heard in a video once, maybe just her way of marking the moment. But it felt right. Like we'd crossed some invisible line from just surviving to actually building something that might matter. That night, for the first time in 3 months, Mia fell asleep before I did. Chapter 2. The sprouting. The beans came up first, pale green hooks breaking through mulch on day 7, impossibly fragile. Mia checked them 3 times before breakfast, crouched in the dirt with her phone flashlight, borrowed from the library with a promise to return it charged, counting each emergence. 17 so far. We planted 48. Give them time. What if the others don't come? Then we learn from 17 beans. But by day 10 we had 39. The tomatoes followed a week later, sturdier, their first true leaves spreading like hands. The field began to shift from bare clay to something tentatively alive, rows of green against brown, geometry imposed on chaos. We fell into a rhythm. Up before dawn to water, morning only, Elena's map insisted. Weeding until the sun got too high. Afternoons spent improving the next section. More wood chips, more compost, more transformation of hard earth into something that might forgive our inexperience. We ate mostly rice and beans, stretching every dollar. The library became our second home. Mia researching pest control and crop disease, me filing paperwork for the land claim, both of us using the bathroom and water fountain like the luxuries they'd become. Mrs. Chen started saving books for us. Thought you might need this, Korjan, she'd say, sliding a manual on square-foot gardening or organic fertilizers across the desk. She never made us feel like charity cases. She never asked questions that would require us to admit we were homeless. The field started attracting attention. Paul came by twice more with supplies, some PVC pipe for a makeshift irrigation system, a tarp to cover seedlings from an unexpected late frost. His wife brought dinner once, chicken soup in a sealed container, still warm with fresh bread. Paul told me what you're doing, she said. Elena would be proud. But not everyone approved. A man in a county truck showed up on week 6. He walked the perimeter, took photos, made notes on a clipboard. When he reached the tent, he stopped. You've got documentation for this claim? I showed him the papers. He studied them for a long time. Adverse possession requires open and notorious use. Court won't look kindly on squatting. We're not squatting. We're improving the property. All documented, dated photos, receipts for materials. I'd learned that much from the library research. We've filed quarterly reports with the county as required. He frowned. There are health code issues, sanitation, no running water. You've got a minor living here? Temporarily. We're working toward permanent structures. Working with what money? That was the question, wasn't it? He left without issuing any citations, but the warning was clear. We were tolerated, not accepted. One complaint, one violation, and we'd lose everything. That night, Mia was quiet through dinner. Finally, what if they make us leave? Then we fight. With what? We don't have a lawyer. We don't have money for rent somewhere else. We don't. Her voice cracked. I'm so tired of not having anything. I wanted to promise her certainty, but all I had was dirt and hope. We have this. Right now, right here, we have a field that's growing. We have people who want us to succeed. And we have Elena's map, like she knew someone would need it exactly when we found it. That's not enough. Maybe not, but it's what we're building from. She went to bed without answering. I stayed up checking our progress against Elena's original plan. We'd completed maybe 10% of the work she'd envisioned. The gentle start section was thriving, but acres remained untouched. At our current pace, it would take 2 years to transform the entire field, and we didn't have 2 years. The 18-month deadline for our adverse possession claim was already counting down. I needed help, real help, but asking meant admitting how desperate we were, and I'd spent 3 months trying to protect Mia from that exact vulnerability. In the morning, I found her already awake, sitting under the oak with Elena's map spread across her knees. She'd added notes in the margins, calculations, dates, sketches of improved irrigation layouts. I've been thinking, she said, about the fruit stand. What if we rebuilt it? With what materials? Paul said there's a Habitat restore in the next town. Donated building supplies, cheap. And if we got it running before harvest, we could sell what we grow. Tomatoes, beans, whatever makes it. Use that money to buy more supplies, expand faster. It was ambitious, probably impossible. But it was also the first time since the eviction that Mia had planned something beyond the next meal. We'd need help building it. So we asked for help. She said it like it was simple, like the worst thing that could happen was someone saying no. That afternoon, we posted a notice at the library. Community Garden Project, seeking volunteers, tools, expertise, rebuilding historic farmland in honor of Elena Vega. All welcome. Mrs. Chen read it, smiled, and pinned it to the main bulletin board. 3 days later, on a Saturday morning, 2 pickup trucks pulled up the service road. Then another, then a sedan. By 9 a.m. we had 11 people. Paul and his wife, Mrs. Chen and her son, a handful of others who'd known Elena or just heard about what we were doing. They brought tools, lumber, expertise. By sunset, we had the frame of a new fruit stand, 8 by 10, built on the original foundation stones, covered with a salvaged metal roof that would keep the sun off whatever we hoped to sell. One of the volunteers, a retired carpenter named Domingo, showed Mia how to use a level and drill. She worked alongside him for hours, measuring twice, cutting once, proud of every straight line. "You're a natural," he said, wiping sawdust from his shirt. "I'm just following instructions." That's how every builder starts. When everyone left, Mia and I stood in front of the new structure. It wasn't finished, needed siding, shelving, a proper counter, but it was real, solid, proof that we could create something beyond just survival. "Dad? Yeah? Thanks for not giving up." I didn't know how to tell her that she was the only reason I hadn't. Chapter 3. The storm season. June brought heat and the tomatoes went wild, fruit splitting from growth, branches heavy enough to need staking. We harvested 20 pounds in the first week, 50 in the second. The fruit stand became our sales point and word spread. People stopped on their way home from work, bought tomatoes by the pound, left cash in the honor box we'd mounted to the counter. We earned $340 in 3 weeks, enough for a used propane fridge to keep produce fresh, enough for more seedlings, enough to expand the garden by another 1/4 acre, enough to feel like we were actually building something permanent. Mia started keeping records, sales tallies, crop yields, customer feedback. She made a sign, "Elena's Garden, fresh, local, grown with hope." Someone took a photo and posted it online. By July, we had people driving 20 minutes out of their way to buy from us. But success brought scrutiny. A man in an expensive suit arrived one humid afternoon, stepping carefully around mud puddles in leather shoes. He studied the field, the fruit stand, the tent still visible under the oak, and then handed me a business card. "Marcus Webb, Property Development. This is interesting what you've done here," he said. "But 6 acres is too small for real agriculture, and the location's not commercial enough for retail, wrong use of the land. We're doing fine. For now, but winter's coming. No structures, no running water, no heat. County's going to shut you down for your daughter's sake, if nothing else." He let that sink in. "I could offer you cash for whatever claim you've established. Enough to get you and your daughter into real housing. A fresh start. This is our fresh start. This is a field with a tent. I'm offering you an exit before it collapses." He gestured at the sky where clouds had begun piling up. "Storm season's starting. One good blow, and you'll lose everything that's not anchored in concrete." After he left, I checked the weather. Severe thunderstorm watch for the next 3 days. Possible tornadoes. Hail. We spent the evening securing everything we could, tying down the tent, covering the fruit stand's open side with tarps, mulching heavily around the most vulnerable plants. The air had that electric weight that precedes violence. "Should we leave?" Mia asked, watching the western sky turn green. "Where would we go?" She didn't answer, because we both knew. Nowhere. This field was all we had. The storm hit at midnight. Wind that sounded like freight trains. Rain that came sideways, turning the ground to soup. The tent stakes held, barely, but water seeped through the seams. We huddled in the center, bags piled around us, listening to the field get destroyed. Lightning showed us snapshots, the oak bending almost double, fruit stand tarps whipping free, bean trellises toppling. The roar of it all made conversation impossible. Mia pressed against my side, shaking. From cold or fear, I couldn't tell. It lasted 4 hours. By dawn, the field was unrecognizable. 3 inches of standing water in the low spots. The tomato section looked like it had been bombed. Plants stripped, fruit scattered and split. Half the beans were flattened. The fruit stand had survived, but barely. Roof bent, one corner post cracked. Mia walked the damage in silence, her boots squelching. When she reached the tomato section, she knelt in the mud and started picking up fruit. Some salvageable, most not. Her shoulders shook. I knelt beside her. We'll replant. With what? We used everything we had, and he was right. Winter's coming. We can't stay in a tent when it's freezing. We don't have electricity, we don't have plumbing, we don't... She threw a ruined tomato. We're kidding ourselves. Elena didn't quit. Elena had a house. She probably had money. She wasn't... The word stuck in her throat. Homeless. Elena had dirt and hope and a plan, I said quietly. Just like us. And she left us her map specifically for moments like this, when it all feels impossible. It is impossible. Then let's be impossible together. She didn't smile, but she kept picking up tomatoes. By noon, we'd salvaged maybe 40 pounds of bruised fruit and assessed the real damage. We'd lost perhaps 30% of the crop, but 70% had survived. The beans could be restaked. The fruit stand could be reinforced. We had setbacks, not defeat. Paul arrived in the afternoon with his truck bed full of lumber and posts. Heard you got hit hard. Figured you'd need these. You didn't have to. Elena's field has survived worse, so will you. We spent 3 days rebuilding, reinforcing stakes, clearing drainage channels, bracing the fruit stand properly. Others came to help. Domingo with his carpentry tools, Mrs. Chen with her son to clear debris. Strangers who'd heard about the storm and wanted to contribute. On the 4th day, I was digging a new drainage channel near the field's north edge when my spade hit something solid. Not stone. Too regular. I cleared the dirt carefully. A box, wooden about 2 feet long, sealed with wax and buried maybe 18 inches down. Mia came running when I called. Together we pried it open. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth journals. 5 of them, leather-bound, dated from 1985 to 2003. Elena's journals. Her life in handwriting. Accounts of weather and planting, yes, but also deeper things. Grief over her husband's death. Hope that the farm would provide for her daughter. Plans for expansion, for workshops, for making this field a community resource. And then, in the final journal, the cancer diagnosis. The acceptance that she couldn't finish. The last entry dated 3 weeks before she died. I buried this box for whoever comes next, because someone will come. This land chooses people. It chose me when I had nothing, and it will choose again. To that person, don't work alone. I tried to carry everything by myself and nearly lost what mattered most. The relationships, the community, the meaning beyond the harvest. Let people help. Let the land teach you. And when you succeed, make sure it means something bigger than just you. E.V. Mia read it 3 times, then closed the journal carefully. If this restoration story has you hooked, hit like. It helps us bring more lost places back to life. She said it again, that strange internet phrase, but this time I understood. She was marking another threshold crossed. We'd survived the storm, we'd found Elena's deepest truth, and we had a choice. Keep building alone, or follow her final lesson. That evening, I made calls. Chapter 4. The Harvest Collective. By September, Elena's garden had become something bigger than 2 people and a tent. Domingo had recruited 3 other retirees from his church's woodworking group. Together, they built raised beds with salvaged lumber, 20 of them, each 4 by 8, filled with our improved soil. Mrs. Chen organized a seed exchange through the library, bringing in heirloom varieties from a dozen local gardeners. Paul's wife started a weekend volunteer program. Anyone who worked 4 hours got to take home produce at cost. We weren't just farming anymore. We were building something Elena had envisioned, but never achieved. A community garden in the truest sense. The county inspector returned in October. He walked the entire field, making notes, taking photos. The tent was still there, but now it sat in the middle of an organized, productive farm. Clearly marked rows, a functioning fruit stand, compost bins, a tool shed Domingo's crew had built, even a basic hand-washing station with county-approved sanitation. "I'll be honest," he said, reviewing his clipboard. "When I came in June, I figured you'd be gone by August, but this—" He gestured at the field. "This is documented improvement. You're employing locals through volunteer work, you've increased property tax potential, and you're remediating blighted land. The county likes to see that." "Does that means your adverse possession claim is looking solid? You'll still need to go before a judge, show continuous improvement for 18 months, but you've got documentation now." He paused. "You'll need to address the housing situation before winter. Tent won't cut it, especially with a minor. But there are ag-based housing grants, low-income construction loans. Mrs. Chen at the library probably knows every program available." After he left, Mia exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. "We're actually going to make it. Don't jinx it. I'm not. I forgot what it felt like to think past next week." That night she asked me something she hadn't asked in years. "Do you think Mom would be proud?" Her mother, my ex-wife, had left when Mia was 8. Addiction, mostly, but also anger at how I'd failed to provide, to protect, to be enough. I'd spent 7 years trying to prove I could be the parent we needed. And then lost everything in 6 months. Job, apartment, dignity. "I think," I said carefully, "she'd see how strong you've become, and yeah, she'd be proud of that. I'm not strong, I'm just here." That's what strength looks like most days. The harvest accelerated. By October, we'd sold over $2,000 worth of produce. Tomatoes, beans, squash, peppers, lettuce. Not enough to rent an apartment, but enough to start building something permanent. Mrs. Chen connected us with a county AGI program that offered microloans for farm infrastructure. With her help, we applied for $8,000 to build a small cabin, 400 square feet, basic utilities, legal for agricultural worker housing. The application process took weeks: financial disclosures, site inspections, plans review. Every form felt like an exam we might fail. In November, while we waited for the loan decision, a local news crew showed up. Someone had sent them the story. Homeless father and daughter transforming abandoned farm, honoring previous owner's legacy, feeding community. The reporter was young, earnest, careful with her questions. "Why this field?" she asked. "Because it needed us as much as we needed it," I said. They filmed for an hour, shots of the garden, interviews with volunteers, Mia explaining our crop rotation plans. It felt surreal, being visible after so many months of trying to stay beneath notice. The piece aired on a Saturday evening. By Monday, we had a problem. Marcus Webb returned, the property developer who'd offered to buy our claim. This time he brought a lawyer. "That news story was unfortunate, Mound," he said, "because now everyone knows you're sitting on prime land. 6 acres this close to town with water access and highway frontage. I've got investors interested, serious money. We're not selling. You don't own it yet, and your adverse possession claim hinges on continuous agricultural use and improvement. But if someone were to challenge that claim, say, by demonstrating prior unresolved ownership questions or questioning the legitimacy of your improvements, it could tie you up in court for years." His lawyer handed me papers. Notice of intent to contest adverse possession claim. My client has identified irregularities in the property's title history that suggest the county's auction wasn't properly conducted. We're requesting a stay on any transfer of ownership pending investigation. I read the document twice. It was mostly legal noise, but the threat was clear. Webb would bury us in litigation until we gave up. "Why?" I asked. "What do you even want here?" "I want to build 50 townhomes on this land," and he said flatly, At $400 each, that's $20 million in revenue. Your tomatoes can't compete with that math. After they left, I showed Mia the papers. She read them in silence, her jaw tight. He can't just take it, can he? He can make it too expensive for us to fight. But we have documentation. We have the county's approval. We have dirt and good intentions. He has lawyers and money. She stared at the papers, then at the field. Our field, Elena's field, the field that had chosen us. Then we get our own lawyer. We ask for help. We can't afford. Elena couldn't afford to finish either. But she made sure we could continue. Maybe that's how this works. Maybe we're supposed to ask. That night, I sent emails to every legal aid organization, every pro bono farm advocacy group, every rural rights nonprofit I could find. Most didn't respond. 3 said they didn't have capacity. 1, a small land rights clinic affiliated with the state university, said they'd review our case. A week later, a law professor named Dr. Sarah Kim drove out to see the field. She walked it like the county inspector had, but she looked at different things: our documentation, our volunteer logs, our receipts and photos showing continuous improvement. Adverse possession cases are tricky, she said, but yours has something most don't: community support and documented agricultural use. Webb's title challenge is thin, basically claiming a 40-year-old auction was improperly noticed. That's hard to prove and harder to use as grounds to void your claim. Can you help us? I can have my clinic take the case as a teaching exercise. My students get real-world experience, you get representation. But you need to understand, this will be a fight. Webb has resources to drag this out, and even if we win, it'll cost you time and stress. It's our home, Mia said. We'll fight. Dr. Kim smiled. Then let's get to work. Chapter 5. The hearing. Winter came early that year. By December, the field lay dormant, cover crops planted, beds mulched, everything locked down for the cold months. The fruit stand closed until spring. The tent finally came down. The ag loan had come through. With help from Domingo's crew and a parade of volunteers, we built a cabin in 3 weeks. Small, efficient, legal. Insulated walls, a wood stove, running water from a well we'd drilled with grant money, electricity from solar panels Paul helped us install at cost. It wasn't luxury, but it was ours. 4 walls, a roof that didn't leak, a door that locked. Mia cried the first night we slept there. I forgot what it felt like to be warm. But even warmth couldn't protect us from what was coming. Webb's legal challenge accelerated. Dr. Kim's clinic filed responses, documented our improvements, submitted testimony from dozens of volunteers about the field's transformation. Webb countered with title experts, historical records, arguments that the county's original tax sale had violated notification requirements. The hearing was set for February. We spent January preparing. Dr. Kim's students interviewed us for hours, rehearsing questions we might face. How did you find the property? What gave you the right to occupy it? How much money have you made from sales? Is this truly agricultural use or just glorified squatting? They'll try to make you look opportunistic, Dr. Kim warned, like you're gaming the system for free land. You need to show that this was about more than just getting a roof over your heads, that you've genuinely improved and maintained the property in good faith. But it was about getting a roof over our heads, Mia said. At first, is that wrong? No, it's human. But you also need to show that you grew beyond that this became about stewardship, not just survival. The hearing took place on a Thursday morning in county court. Webb sat with 2 lawyers at a polished table. We sat with Dr. Kim and 3 of her students, our documentation stacked in file boxes. The judge, an older woman named Reyes, listened to both sides for 4 hours. Webb's team argued title irregularities, questioned our motives, suggested we were exploiting a loophole. They brought up my eviction history, Mia's truancy citations from when we'd been homeless, our lack of formal agricultural training. This isn't farming, Webb's lead attorney said. This is camping with vegetables. My client intends to develop this property into housing that will serve dozens of families. not just these two individuals who happened upon a legal gray area. Then Dr. Kim presented our case. She showed photos. The field in June, bare and abandoned. The field in November, structured and productive. She submitted sales records showing $200 in produce revenue over 6 months. She brought testimony from Paul about Elena's original vision and how we'd honored it. Domingo testified about the community build days, the volunteers who'd invested hundreds of hours. Mrs. Chen testified about our library usage, all the research, all the learning, all the evidence of genuine intent to farm responsibly. These aren't squatters, Dr. Kim concluded. They're stewards. They found a blighted property, researched its history, honored its previous owner's vision, and transformed it into a productive community resource. The law recognizes adverse possession specifically for cases like this, when abandoned land is returned to productive use through good faith effort and public benefit. The judge asked me to testify. "Why this field?" she asked. "Of all the places you could have gone, why here?" I thought about Elena's note. The land chooses people. "Because," I said, "it was the first place in months that felt like it might want us. Everything else, shelters, services, even family, they were all temporary permissions that could be revoked. But this field, it was empty, waiting, and Elena left instructions, like she knew someone desperate would find them and need a reason to hope. We didn't choose it as much as it chose us. And once we started working it, we understood that we were finishing something she'd started, not just for us, but for everyone who'd helped us. It stopped being about survival somewhere around July. It became about legacy. Judge Reyes made notes, asked follow-up questions, requested clarification on timeline details. Then she called a recess. We waited in the hallway for 90 minutes. Mia paced, nervous energy she couldn't contain. Dr. Kim reviewed notes with her students, preparing for possible next steps. When we returned, Judge Reyes delivered her ruling. "I find the plaintiff's title challenge unpersuasive. The 1985 tax sale followed proper notice protocols under statutes in effect at that time. The defendant's adverse possession claim, however, is compelling. They've demonstrated continuous, open, notorious, and exclusive use of the property for 14 months with documented improvements totaling over $12,000 in labor and materials. They've engaged in legitimate agricultural activity generating measurable revenue. Most significantly, they've transformed a blighted property into a community resource with broad public benefit. The court finds in favor of the defendants. Adverse possession claim is granted pending completion of the full 18-month requirement and continued agricultural use. Final title transfer will be reviewed in June. Mr. Webb, your challenge is dismissed with prejudice. Next case." The gavel struck. We'd won. Outside the courthouse, Mia hugged me so hard I lost breath. Dr. Kim shook our hands, promised to help with the final paperwork in June. Paul, who'd driven 2 hours to attend, just nodded with wet eyes. "Elena would be proud," he said. That night, back at the cabin, I found Elena's journal, the final one, and read the last entry again. "When you succeed, make sure it means something bigger than just you." We'd won the field. Now we had to decide what to do with that victory. Chapter 6. The Growing Season. Spring arrived like a promise kept. By March, we had 40 raised beds in production, a rebuilt fruit stand with proper permits, and a waiting list of volunteers for the weekend work sessions. The cabin stood solid through February's storms, warm and dry. Mia had enrolled in the local high school, walked in with her head high, no longer hiding that she lived on a farm. But winning the field had changed the question from "can we survive" to "what are we building?" I found the answer in Elena's journals. In the entries I'd read a dozen times. Make this place matter, make it teach, make it heal. We applied for nonprofit status, Elena's Legacy Community Farm. Our mission, provide free or low-cost produce to food-insecure families, teach sustainable farming practices, create green space for community gathering. Dr. Kim helped with the paperwork. Mrs. Chen helped with the grant applications. Paul and Domingo helped build a small classroom shed using plans we found sketched in Elena's journal. By April, we were hosting workshops, starting seeds, composting basics, small space gardening. 20 people showed up for the first one, 40 for the second. By May, we were teaching twice a week, and people were bringing their kids, their grandparents, their neighbors. The field became what Elena had envisioned 40 years earlier, a place where people learned to feed themselves, to work with dirt, to find hope and growth. Mia thrived. She'd taken ownership of the youth program, teaching middle schoolers how to plant, tend, harvest. I watched her one Saturday afternoon showing a shy 12-year-old how to thin lettuce seedlings, patient and encouraging, and thought, this is who she was meant to become. "You're good at this," I told her later. "I learned from someone stubborn," she said, grinning. In June, we returned to court for the final hearing. Judge Reyes reviewed our 18 months of documentation, noted the nonprofit status, the community programs, the continued agricultural productivity. Title is granted. The property is yours, free and clear, subject to maintaining its nonprofit agricultural status. She paused. This court doesn't often see adverse possession cases with this kind of outcome. You've done something rare here, turned a legal technicality into genuine community benefit. Congratulations. The gavel struck again, but this time it meant something different. Permanence. We held a celebration at the field, invited everyone who'd helped. Paul brought Elena's daughter, Christina, who'd stayed away for 20 years because the memories hurt too much. She walked the rows, touched the rebuilt fruit stand, stood under the oak, and cried. "Mom wanted this so badly, Ro," she said. She talked about community gardens, about teaching, about making this place matter beyond just our family. But she ran out of time and I couldn't. I couldn't finish for her. "You didn't have to," Mia said gently. The field waited for the right people. Christina hugged her, then me. "Thank you for finishing what she started." That evening, after everyone left, Mia and I sat under the oak, the tree that had sheltered our tent, that had witnessed our worst nights and best mornings. The carved initials were still there. EV, 1987. First harvest, first hope. Below that, Mia added new ones with a wood-burning tool. M&D, 2025. Second harvest, lasting hope. "Think we're done?" she asked. I looked at the field, 40 beds, fruit stand, classroom, paths worn smooth by volunteer feet. But I also saw the acres still untouched, the plans Elena had sketched for greenhouses and orchards, the potential waiting in seeds we hadn't planted yet. "I think we're just starting." She smiled, and in that smile I saw everything we'd survived and everything we'd built. Grief transformed into purpose, desperation into determination, isolation into community. Subscribe for more true-to-life tales of rebuilding memory and hidden history. See you in the next story. She said it one final time, not as a call to action, but as a closing door on one chapter and the opening of another. We'd been chosen by a field, saved by seeds, taught by a woman we'd never met, Vita, and now we were passing it forward, offering the same stubborn hope Elena had planted 40 years ago, roots deep enough to survive any storm. The field had changed everything, but really we'd just learned what it had been trying to teach all along, that growth happens slowly, in seasons, with patience and community, and the willingness to trust that dirt remembers how to heal.